I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Tonight, an interesting question for you. Is a series of lawsuits in our area targeting small business owners for violating the Americans with Disabilities Act, is that an effort to bring justice? Or is it predatory, targeting a high percentage of immigrants who might easily be intimidated? That's our big story tonight. A few weeks ago, we told you about two Portland lawyers who filed dozens of lawsuits claiming small businesses had violated the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's the federal 1990 law that requires businesses to make sure that customers have equal access to their premises. As we discovered, the lawyers were demanding attorney's fees, typically around $10,000 per case, which left many property owners feeling like it was kind of like a shakedown. Well, since that first story aired, we've heard from a lot of people, including other small business owners, and some feel they're being targeted because of their race. Here's investigative reporter Kyle Leboshi.
Nothing has come easy for Han Tran.
I came to America when I was 19.
After immigrating from Vietnam, she worked 3 jobs, 7 days a week to provide for her family.
I go pick strawberry, I go doing dishes, and later on I waitressing. 3 jobs. I go one job to the other job.
Han raised 3 children, all while saving for the future. She invested in a small strip mall roughly 7 years ago.
Sounds like you poured everything you had into this building.
Yes.
The building on Southeast Clackamas Road is home to a hair and nail salon, a Thai restaurant, and tattoo parlor.
All small business owners?
Yes.
All longtime clients?
Yes. They've been here before me.
The building didn't seem to have any problems until a few weeks ago, when Han got a demand letter from a Portland attorney claiming the property was in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, although it didn't specify what needed to be fixed.
Any customers ever come in complaining about it?
No.
Nobody expressed concern?
No.
The attorney proposed a settlement agreement. The lawyer wouldn't sue if Han agreed to make repairs, bring the property into compliance, and pay attorney's fees. But she had to act fast.
We need to fix it within 2 weeks.
Han hired a contractor to restripe the parking lot and install the required van-accessible parking signs.
So you've made the fixes within days?
Yes, 6 days.
Within 6 days,
Yes.
these fixes were made?
Yes.
Despite the improvements, the attorney, Jessica Molligan, still filed a lawsuit, leaving Han scared and confused.
We don't know the law, so it's like the whole family. We worry.
In May, a KGW investigation found this same Portland lawyer, Jessica Molligan, and another lawyer, David Foster, had sued more than 3 dozen businesses in the Portland area since September. These convenience stores, restaurants, and gas stations are accused of violating some technical aspects of the ADA. In many cases, the owners said they were willing to make the fix. They just didn't like the lawyer's tactics, threatening litigation and demanding attorney's fees, typically around $10,000 per case.
I mean, it seems like, it's extortion. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Since our original reporting, we've heard from at least a dozen other business owners who have received near identical demand letters and lawsuits. And from those responses, something stood out.
We believe that they came after our businesses and are targeting the minority community, specifically Asians, because many of the business owners and property owners are first generation. Language is a barrier, and they have a tendency to not resist and just settle. They're easy targets.
Of the now 47 ADA lawsuits filed by attorneys Jessica Molligan and David Foster, 22 of them, almost half, involved Asian-owned businesses.
Statistics don't lie, right? It's disproportionate.
And those are the cases we're aware of. Many small businesses said they were told to keep things secret, and court records prove it. This settlement agreement with Jessica Molligan shows that details about terms, conditions, and payments are to remain strictly confidential. The secret paperwork only became public after Molligan sued an Asian-owned business that didn't pay her $6,000 in attorney's fees. In response to our emails, attorney Jessica Molligan wrote, "Asian businesses are not being targeted. That is beyond offensive." The other lawyer, David Foster, said he's withdrawing from the ADA cases. "I'm no longer acting as counsel." Foster went on to explain that he'd been hired as local counsel by an out-of-state firm, Wampler, Carroll, Wilson, and Sanderson. So why would a Tennessee law firm want to pursue ADA cases in Oregon? The law firm didn't respond.
You know, lawyers look bad enough, and I think it makes us look even worse, unfortunately.
Consumer advocate attorney Michael Fuller agreed to help Hahn for free, and the case was eventually dropped. But not everybody has the same legal muscle to push back, especially small Asian-owned businesses.
Like, we're easy targets.
Hahn's daughter, Sarah.
I'm very heartbroken by this because my mom is such a hardworking person, and the other people in the community are hardworking people too, and immigrants, we're the backbone of the community.
We don't know if Asian-owned businesses are indeed being targeted, or if it's just coincidence. But either way, court records suggest a segment of the community is being disproportionately impacted by threatening letters and lawsuits, then in many cases told to stay silent about it.
Kyle joins me now, and this certainly seems nasty, but is it illegal?
Not illegal so far as we can tell. Ethical? Different question there. That's part of the challenge here is, as far as the ADA is concerned, there's no government office set up to monitor and enforce the ADA. Instead, it's up to people with disabilities, their lawyers, and the judges to enforce the ADA. In talking to the businesses, they're really challenged here because they just don't like the approach. Attorneys coming in and threatening them with demand letters, litigation, attorney's fees. They say, listen, if these people were just to come forward and say, listen, please make the changes, they'd be willing to do it.
Yeah, it's a matter of, do you really want the change or do you want the hammer and the change? Yeah. All right, so one of the lawyers dropped out, probably because of your publicity. Good job. What about the other one?
The other attorney, Jessica Molligan, she's now handling all of these ADA cases, and she's still actively pursuing them. I checked this week. She has filed additional cases as of this week, so she's still very busy.
And what about the Tennessee law firm? How's that connected?
That is a big question, and that's a new development that we uncovered during the course of our reporting over the past few weeks. We really don't know what role they're playing. One of the attorneys, David Foster, said, listen, they hired me as legal counsel, local representation in these cases. They made all the decisions. He didn't elaborate beyond that, but it really does raise some serious questions about the role this Tennessee firm is playing in these ADA cases in Oregon.
And I wonder if this is a national thing they're doing as well.
We're going to keep digging because I think there's a lot more to peel back here.
Well, and if somebody out there knows these answers, contact Kyle. Thanks, Kyle. Good stuff. All right, so what do you think about all this? Is it a money grab by the attorneys, or do you believe they're actually fighting for Americans with disabilities by going after these businesses? Email us, will you? The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. You may have noticed that KGW launched a new weather brand this week called Weather Impact. It's meant to highlight the times when weather will have an impact on your day, you know, more than the average weather impact. Our upcoming heat wave will not only have an impact, it could be downright dangerous. And that's why we have Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino joining us now to explain what's coming in the science behind this heat wave. Matt?
Yeah, thanks so much, Pat. And you're right. We just launched this week. Perfect timing with the heat wave that's coming up. So what we're doing is we're highlighting the weather impact alert days in red, as opposed to the normal blue of our 7-day forecast here, just to highlight them and make it stand out more so that you get the sense that, hey, this is something different. This is something that may have an impact on me. Either, at the very least, it may be inconvenient. At the very worst, as in this case, it may be downright dangerous to certain groups of people, in this case because of the heat. So we'll talk about the heat wave and then dig into it a little bit more. Tomorrow, it begins in the afternoon. That's why we're calling it a half and half day. And mornings will be just fine. But in the afternoon, we ramp up into the 90s. And because it's a holiday, a lot of people will be out and active. We think it'll have a bigger impact on more people for that reason. So we're starting the weather impact alert on Thursday afternoon. But then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, triple-digit heat certainly qualifies as having a big impact on our communities and our population. So that's why we've got the alert for all 4 days, really 4.5 days here. I think the weekend will be the hottest. Saturday 104, Sunday 105. We're only a degree away from each other either way. It's going to be super hot. And then look at this. If you look at the 7-day forecast, every single day is above 90 degrees. So this is a long duration heat wave that we are going into. The peak of it Thursday through Monday when we're in triple digits, excessive heat. And so what's the need? This is another thing we'll do when we have these weather impact alerts. Talk about what it is, when it is, and what you need to be thinking about to help mitigate the impact on you. In this case, stay hydrated. I know it sounds obvious, but it's always worth repeating. Don't forget your pets and your plants because they need to stay hydrated as well. And if you can, avoid strenuous activity. Now, I know that can be a tall bar, but if you were planning on, setting concrete this weekend, you might want, or roofing, you might want to wait a little bit if you can, because those are the kinds of things, the activities that will get people in trouble. So again, some of the things that you need to think about doing if you can to avoid being impacted in a really negative way by the heat that we have here. We've got excessive heat warnings everywhere in the magenta and even the high Cascades under a heat advisory. Southern Oregon also has fire weather warnings. We've got no big fires burning in Oregon right now. There's really no smoke to speak of around the state. Hopefully it stays that way. But I mean, look at this. These excessive heat warnings go from Canada to Mexico. California will bear the brunt of this. There are some pretty big fires burning down there. And then fire weather warnings as far east as the Wasatch and Utah there. So again, this is a very, very long duration heat wave that we're dealing with here, Pat.
And Matt, what about the humidity? Is it going to be low, which is bad for fires?
The humidity will be low, which is bad for fires. We call that humidity recovery because normally on a normal day, at night, the humidity goes up, so it recovers, in the words of fire weather, and that's good. That helps to slow the spread of a fire. But when it's this hot and the air is this dry, up in the Cascades, Pat, the humidity is going to be about 5 to 15% in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So it's really tough to get it to recover overnight. The other thing about this is usually with dry air, if there's no humidity, the temperatures will drop more overnight tonight. But two things. The air mass is so hot, it's going to be tough to get the overnight lows to drop. And we just passed the summer solstice, so the nights are as short as they get. So we simply don't have a lot of time to recover. These are the records for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. They're all going to fall, Pat. They're all going down.
Yikes.
So those will all be triple-digit records by the time we roll into next week. These are the record overnight lows, the record warm overnight lows. And look at my forecast. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Those will all fall. Sunday morning, we probably will never drop below 70. So that's a tough get. That makes it hard for people without air conditioning or a good way to cool off to realize at least some cooling overnight.
Yeah, old houses like mine, they just start to soak up that heat, and we have a couple window air conditioners, but oh man.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, every part of your house, the roof, the timbers, everything just gets so hot and doesn't really have time to cool off before the sun comes back up. So that's what makes those overnight lows so challenging.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks for the explanation,
You
Matt.
bet.
Appreciate it. Coming up next now on The Story, Portland City Council finally voted on whether or not to renew a contract with the county-run Joint Office of Homeless Services. It's costing a total of $87 million for taxpayers over the next 3 years. There was a lot on the line today, and it came down to a single vote. We'll explain when The Story returns. Portland City Councilors today narrowly passed a proposal to send $87 million to the county's Joint Office of Homeless Services over the next 3 years. It was 3-2 in the vote. The big sticking issue is whether the county office actually listens to the city or just ignores their wishes. There's also the backdrop of politics. Everyone on Portland City Council, except for Mayor Ted Wheeler, is running for some sort of an election. So, yes, they each had a lot to say. You can watch the entire thing if you want on YouTube, but we've brought you what we think are their strongest arguments for and against. Let's start with Renee Gonzalez, who has insisted that the county quit giving the homeless tents and tarps, since city workers later have to come through and clean them up. This contract requires a new joint city-county policy on tent and tarp distribution, as well as new guidelines for handing out things like syringes and drug kits.
I collaborated and out of respect for the work of the mayor's team have done over the last year with our partners in the county, I do not believe perfection should stand in the way of progress. Following this, I received encouraging news from the county chair that they will be halting new purchases of tents and tarps while we work to establish clear guidelines around their continued distribution. If the county is going to compromise and work with us to move the ball forward in good faith, I will see where the road takes us, to October 15th at least. While I remain firm on these expectations for milestone review and determination, I'm also hopeful about the work we might achieve together in the meantime. I vote aye.
Gonzalez is running for mayor. So is Mingus Mapps, who voted no.
Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time today refuting the mayor's and the county chair's arguments, because frankly, everyone on this council knows that they are disingenuous. And we know they're disingenuous because on the first reading of this item, this council had a frank conversation about why the city of Portland is sending $87 million to the joint office without giving the county any direction on how those funds should be spent. The mayor told us in clear terms that $87 million is an ante the city of Portland pays in order to purchase the privilege of sitting on the Homeless Services Oversight Committee. Frankly, I find that logic to be shocking and horrifying. I don't believe that this is how the city should do business. Doing so is frankly a departure from normal business practices. It's a departure from good business practices. And I fear it is also a departure from ethical business practices, which is why I vote no.
Carmen Rubio is also running for mayor. She voted yes.
I also want to reiterate my position related to tents and tarps, since that issue has garnered so much attention. As I shared with county leadership weeks ago, a tent and tarp policy must be shaped and implemented responsibly, a policy where we can reduce them over time as shelter beds increase. We first must know how, when, and to whom tents and tarps will be distributed, which involves more than 80 organizations that have their own policies, not dictated by the joint office. Then, after evaluating how organizations are approaching this work, we need to take into account the availability of shelter beds. This is how we can balance accountability with the reality of needing to protect humans from the elements.
And Dan Ryan is running for city council. He said the council is letting the public down, and he voted no.
We are not delivering on your expectations. My amendment asked for one behavioral health expert who is not on the county payroll, one business sector representative who helped pass SHS funding in 2020 and has since felt left out, and one individual taxpayer with a lived experience in homelessness or behavioral health recovery. My call for transparency, accountability, and good governance was met with fear and pushback. I learned that sadly, there are those who feel my friendly amendment disrupts the balance of power. Well, that's exactly the point. System change work happens when you shake up the existing system of power, and that starts with changing who has a seat at the table. As amended, we'll be signing up for agreement that has not been working, because for the most part, we'll be signing up for more of the same.
By the way, Ryan's amendment to add those 3 positions to a steering committee within the joint office did pass, but 2 other people were also added who he thinks will support the status quo. All 5 of those new members will not be able to actually vote on the policy, so their inclusion is, let's say, symbolic. Finally, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler voted yes on the Intergovernmental Agreement, or IGA. He is not running for anything.
Finally, I've heard a lot of reasons why we should not support this IGA. And I respect all of my colleagues in the decisions that they have made, whether they have supported this or whether they did not support this. But what I've not heard over the course of the last year is, if not this, then what? What is the viable alternative? How would we support people with addiction? How would the city of Portland work with people who have severe mental health issues? What housing would we be navigating people to in the absence of a relationship with the county? From my perspective, we are at a time in history, we are in a time of such skepticism of government, particularly local government. We as leaders can't get on the bandwagon of, no, we can't do it. We can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do anything. It's our job to plow through the no and get to the yes and figure out where we can leverage off of each other and where we can be successful. Even if it's a highly imperfect system, an imperfect system is better than no system at all.
The City Council will have a chance to review how the joint office is doing 3 months from now and get out of the agreement if they really don't like what's happening. Multnomah County Commissioners still have to give the final approval on the amended deal, which is expected later this month. Keep it right here. We'll share some of your thoughts on Multnomah County's deflection program right after this. All right, let's get to some of your thoughts on our big story last night detailing Multnomah County's deflection program as it stands so far, with less than 2 months until drugs are recriminalized on September 1st. Here's what we know right now. Deflection will only be for people charged with possession of drugs. If they have warrants or face additional criminal charges when they're caught with drugs, deflection will not be an option for them. For people who are eligible, they will not be required to enroll in substance abuse treatment. People will only have to check in at the drop-off center on Southeast Sandy Boulevard once police bring them there. The county says people will engage with someone to conduct a screening and help them access services if they want them. And finally, right now, there's no limit on how often a person can opt for deflection over arrest. Yesterday, we told you that Washington County is limiting deflection chances to 1 time per year, and Clackamas DA doesn't have the final number yet, but they say yes, there will indeed be a limit. When it comes to Multnomah County's plan, many of you told us you're not expecting much change out on our streets. Glenn wrote to us to say, no consequences, the same old, same, the same, blah, blah, blah. Good luck with that, Portland.
I'm annoyed that people can just come and go in a revolving door, and best practice is, well, they have to want help. Well, I don't get to toss my garbage into the street because I have deflected my garbage service. I don't want poop on the sidewalk because someone decides that that's their best place to be. I don't want camping in front of my house. So I don't understand why everybody who pays taxes has to follow the rules, gets no police protection, but everybody who wants to be a drug addict, which clearly they're already making terrible choices, they get to deflect. They get to choose what they want to do, and I have to follow the rules, and their choices affect me, and no one seems to care, and no one seems to be accountable for anyone.
All right, thanks for your comments, Colleen. And how about this one from Greg? Once again, Multnomah County elected and not-for-profit social service leaders are supportive of the carrot and not the stick. Translation, zero accountability. Both groups have little to no consideration as to how persons on the street negatively impact the livability of our community. Thanks for all your comments. There were a lot more. That's all we have time for, though. And thanks for the feedback. Please do keep it coming in. In the meantime, that's the end of our show. Thanks for watching, and remember, the story, our collective story, well, that never ends. Remember, we don't have a show for you tomorrow night because it's the 4th of July and the holiday, but we will be back with you on Friday. In the meantime, the good stuff's coming your way next, and I will see you right back here on Friday night at 6:30.